Good morning, Xbox, Sony, Nintendo, gamers, gaming community. What is going on? Happy Friday to everyone. Welcome to another BRAP Friday rant. Grab your cup of coffee and where's Roach? It's an interesting Friday. We have here in the U.S. we have news of a potential government shutdown. That's always interesting, fascinating. Um, so that's looming. Hopefully, Congress can come to some kind of compromise and pass a budget and whatnot. Well, anyhow, we'll see what happens. But anyhow, we have some big news, and as I've mentioned before, anytime there's big industry news, I tend to do some quick BRAP rants, and this one is going to be a quick one. So, by the way, if you haven't checked out Wednesday's Basement Radio Arcade podcast, our regular Wednesday night podcast, our weekly podcast, if you will, definitely check that out. We had Zach from Bear Claw Gaming, who's also a co-host on our sister podcast, Super Deform Gamescast, and we also had Miss Bella Rise from Real Game Media. She was on as well. She joined myself, B Money, and Eric Jackson. Everybody, great podcast. Very interesting conversation, very spirited conversation, I should say, revolving around the alleged allegations of sexual harassment, racism at Quantic Dream, who they're the game studio behind Detroit, Become Human, and Heavy Rain, and Beyond Two Souls. So definitely want to check that out if you haven't done so already. Great podcast as always. So Sam, what's going on, man? Good morning. Sam Walton is in the live chat. If you're in the live chat, please feel free to comment, ask questions. We always have a phenomenal, fantastic live chat. Always great conversation going on there, and definitely appreciate everyone interacting and not doing any crazy fanboy stuff. We don't do the fanboy stuff here at BRAP. Just not what we do. All of us are just passionate gamers. Myself, B Money, Eric Jackson, Mr. Negative, we all own multiple consoles and just have a general appreciation and love for all things gaming. So on that note, I wanted to talk about Microsoft, and I know there have been some people that have been critical of our criticism of Microsoft here on this podcast, but as I say to gamers, it's okay to be critical of the things you love. It's okay to be critical of a product you own. Look, I own an Xbox One X. I have been primarily gaming on my Xbox One X since I picked it up. Really haven't been playing much on my PlayStation 4. I've played some games on the Switch when my kids aren't monopolizing the Switch. They've been playing a lot of ARMS lately. And but look, even though I play on the Xbox One X, I've been outspoken, as we all should, as we're consumers. We should always demand the best from companies that we support, especially in gaming. So, because it's like I said, it's not a cheap hobby by any stretch of the imagination when you look at the investment in hardware and software that consumers make in this in the industry or in gaming. So, yeah, I mean, I've been very critical of Microsoft as it relates to its first party issues, its lack of newer content. Look, Gears and Halo are great franchises. They are franchises that help Microsoft get to a place where it's been successful as a console manufacturer with the Xbox. And look, the MPD numbers just came out yesterday. Matt Piscatella from MPD put out a really nice video on YouTube. You should definitely check that out. Kind of breaking down the numbers, and he said, if you look at where we are today, or December, I should say, December of this point in the console gen compared to last console gen combined, Xbox One and PlayStation 4 are outselling PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 at the same point. So, and then and I think it was there. It's an increase of 14% or something like that. So that's great. I mean, it just means that both companies are doing well, and we should celebrate that because the industry is very healthy right now. So, so there were some articles that I read yesterday and this morning, and the first thing that I want to talk about is apparently there's some big news coming down the pipeline next week as it relates to Microsoft. Z Huge, who we've had on the show before as a friend of BRAP. He's an the and by the way, I've linked these articles in the description below. So if you want to click on these articles and read the articles, you can. But our good friend Z Huge was quoted and as saying that there's a very big announcement next week as it relates to the treatment of digital games by Microsoft. So, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was, are we going to finally see some sort of like digital game trade-in type system or store or model? Um, I can tell you, I think that many of us would like to be able to trade our digital games. I think that that would be I always say that whoever could figure out how to do that is going to um, really put the clamps on GameStop, and I think that that would be a model that would probably drive um, more consumers to purchase games digitally. Um, because look, you know, there's a certain at least for me, I think there's definitely value in buying physical still, and I haven't completely gone to digital because I will, and I was against this at first, but as you know, look, I with all the games that came out this console gen, I decided, you know what, I'm going to trade games in and get credit for it to use towards future purposes because um, there was a lot of content coming out, so. Um, and that's probably the biggest reason why I haven't you know, completely jumped in and gone 100% digital. And if you do that, that's fine. That's great. There's certainly some pros to going digital. But so I just want to I want to read this quote real quick from Z Huge. What's up, Chief Tommy? Chief Tommy says, "No, I don't support mid-gen upgrades at all. Xbox still needs to show me something to keep me coming back." Chief Tommy, we will get into that in a sec here as I talk about Microsoft and Xbox heading in the right direction. So, um, Airless78 says Microsoft announces Xbox version of Labo called Connecto. Clearly, he's joking. Um, yeah, that's not. We all know that Connect is dead, and now I'll talk about that here in a sec. But um, let me get back to this article regarding Z Huge. So Z Huge works for Equal Partners, and a new post, um, and the Reset Era forums, he mentions or he says this quote: "Been waiting to make this a post for a while. The Xbox team is currently using the budget they have to invest in a number of key areas, starting from 2017 to 2018. These areas are Microsoft Games Publishing, digital ecosystem, Windows 10, and Xbox. I should note that a lot of investment going on now is something that will be fully reflected in the next generation, whatever that actually means. What this means in the case of something like the recently rumored Fable 4, for example, is that you should expect that project and other similar projects to release for quite some time. However, any initiatives that you do see hit in 2018, 2019 are an indication of what Microsoft is planning for the next generation. So The first point is that Microsoft are looking into using the budget they have to invest in new projects, both first party and external, to bring them to Xbox in the future. Will there be a couple surprise games this generation? The majority of projects in the works or planned are going to be a while out. There still will be a live service focus across all of their big games, of course. Second point regarding digital ecosystem concerns services like Xbox Live, Xbox Game Pass, Mixer, etc. You're going to see a lot more focus of those services moving forward and integration into the Xbox games services ecosystem. In fact, there's a very big announcement that we should see next week that will give you an indication of how Microsoft intends to treat digital games in the future. And this is the point that I was making, where where I said, "Wow, what if Microsoft says, we're going to create a store where you can digitally trade in your games?" Who knows? Again, look, guys, that's speculation on my part. I haven't heard anything, from any insider or anything like that that would, lead me to um, believe that that indeed is happening. So, just my guess. The third point, and so Z Huge further, he goes on to say, the third point is continued investment in both the Windows 10 and Xbox ecosystem to create one unified Xbox platform. Initiatives like Play Anywhere and a single store are examples of that. Integration should go even further in the future. The above is going to be a slow process, and you'll see results starting from this year through to next gen. That being said, don't expect this to be Microsoft will have 100 first party games and all your dreams will come true. They're still working within the resources they have. So this is definitely an insightful post on the Reset Era forums from our friend Z Huge, who I mentioned we've had him on BRAP before. Um, some of these things in terms of what Z Huge is referring to in terms of a digital ecosystem, Xbox Game Pass, Mixer, um, incorporating those services into or integrating into those Xbox games. I mean, I think a lot of that makes sense. Those are things that we've talked about here on BRAP, and I think many of us have speculated or would agree that this is kind of where Microsoft is heading. And I think for me, the one thing that I'm going to take away from what Z Huge is saying is that they're investing in first party. Look, and this article I'm going to go to with Phil Spencer talking about the hire of Matt Booty, who's VP of Microsoft Game Studios. We've all been critical of them, and I think based on what Phil was saying in a recent interview with VentureBeat, I think that I've been told numerous occasions, like Phil reads tweets. We had Tim Dog on BRAP back in August, and he said the same thing. Like, Phil really does listen to the community. He's like, Phil's, and Tim said, tweet Phil. If there's a concern, tweet him. He's like, if he doesn't reply, it doesn't mean he doesn't read him. He reads a lot of the tweets, and he's not. It doesn't fall on deaf ears. He definitely reads a lot of the stuff that's been tweeted out there or that's been said. So, and I'll get into that in a second. Um, but I'm kind of like, and I tell you what, this year's been great. I think for Microsoft from this perspective, we're talking about them again, and we're talking about them early on in 2018. Not even I think 2 days into the new year did we get this leak on Reset Era with potential games that are going to be coming out on the Xbox One, and Fable was one of those games that was on there being made by Playground Games, and lo and behold, a few weeks later, Eurogame has an article saying that, yeah, in fact, Playground is working on an open world Fable game. And again, that was one of the games that was leaked on that list of leaks from Reset Era. One of the other games, Mech Assault, new Perfect Dark Zero from Rare, Age of Empires. So, it's, I think that the positive in this, and look, I think we can be critical, but we got to give credit where credit's due too. Is that early in 2018 that there's chatter about Xbox, and in a good way. And I think the last what they've done in the last 4 years, from a let's say a hardware perspective, has been pretty good. Um, well, I should say the last 4 years, say the last year or so, with the launch of the Xbox One X. You know, gone is that power advantage, that power narrative. That's gone now. They look, the Xbox One X is a about as perfect of a console as you can get today. It's good. Look, and I've enjoyed my Xbox One X. I'm impressed with it, and Microsoft did one hell of a job with putting out this console. Now, and I've said this before, the only thing they need now is to really take advantage of this platform from a first party perspective, and look, and start putting out some new content. Let's not go back to the well with Gears and Halo. Let's try some other new IPs, or maybe let your studios create new IPs. I think it's great they're letting Playground work on Fable. um they're taking that, they're giving that opportunity. I think that's great. um some sources inside Microsoft said that some of that had to do with what they saw with Guerrilla Games, and Guerrilla going from um Killzone to working on Horizon Zero Dawn. So, but back to what Z Huge was saying with the big announcement next week, that will give us indication how Microsoft intends to treat digital games in the future. This is interesting. Like I mean, is it a unified digital store? Is it which Z Huge mentioned in this post? Is it the ability to trade in your digital content? What does it mean? I mean, I don't. I'm kind of like, I'm really excited to hear what this announcement is. Obviously, if it was some kind of digital trading program, that would be huge. That would be huge because I'll say this again. I don't know if I'm just speculating here. If they came out with a digital trading program, Sony, you need to take notice. The one area where Sony's kind of lacked, and look, Sony has knocked it out of the park this console generation with the PlayStation 4, with content, with new IPs. Um, but I think where there needs to be improvement with them is with some of the features on PlayStation Network. There's still no refund policy, those kinds of things. I'm not a big fan of PlayStation Now. I certainly feel like Game Pass is a much better option for gamers, and they haven't really embraced backwards compatibility. I think that in this time and age, I think that's important for gamers. It's not, look, it may not be important for everyone, but I think there's definitely a segment of the gaming population that wants this feature, that wants backwards compatibility. So I think that's an area where Sony needs to improve. I think they dropped the ball with not allowing EA access, and not necessarily embracing crossplay as much as they probably should as well. So this would be another um, notch in the belt for Microsoft if they, again, this is just my speculation, if they announce something like this, like a digital trade-in program. I mean, think about the impact of that, and what that could mean for the Microsoft store. You would no longer have to go to GameStop to trade in games. I mean, that's huge. You could do it from the comfort of your house, from the comfort of your couch. I know I would like that. But it's interesting. I just wonder what it's going to be, and I think this is great. I think that having the conversation, and people talking about Xbox One X or Xbox again so early into the year, it's just I think it's good for the brand. I think it's good, and these are things, and it's not a conversation of oh my God, there's another game cancellation or anything like that, or it's not a conversation of when are they going to get rid of the Connect. They have gone, I think, through the hardest part, I think. And I think Phil has kind of navigated them through a very challenging time that started in 2013. The Kinect is gone. They're not making the Kinect anymore. That's dead. Um, they released the Xbox One X. They've they've added some additional services that are really great. Now it's time to kind of focus, kind of take that next step and focus on first party. And I think that Fable potentially is a start. Like, hey, you know what? Fable Legends, we know it didn't work. We scrapped the project. We went back to the drawing board, but we're bringing it back. The fans and look, fans wanted Fable back, and I think that's a great nod to the fans. And I think it's great that Microsoft is working on bringing that back. Frank Caesar in the live chat says Sony needs to get on board with backwards compatibility. I have a lot of PlayStation 3 digital content. What am I supposed to do with that going forward? If that's the case, why buy digital from Sony? You know what, Frank, I share the same sentiment with you. I mean, I agree with you 110%. So, yeah, and I think that's an area where, and that's an area where Microsoft could, come into next generation. And, with the investment in first party and new content, hopefully, now they have an array of other features that the competition doesn't offer. And I think those are great differentiators. So I want to go to an article about with regards to Phil Spencer and something that he recently said. I believe this was an interview in a lengthy interview that was published by VentureBeat. And by the way, if you want to read the article, I actually include the article link in the description section below. So if you want to read further, definitely check that out. So as we know, we talked about this on BRAP on Wednesday. Matt Booty is now he's essentially filled the vacancy left by Phil Spencer, who was promoted to executive vice president. He was promoted to executive vice president of gaming. Matt Booty is now corporate vice president of Microsoft Game Studios. So if you think like people like Shannon Loftus will report directly to him, Frank O'Connor from 343 will report directly to him, and so forth. So Phil in this interview had some interesting things to say, and I'll quote. I'm going to quote his what he said in the interview with VentureBeat. Phil says, I'm not deaf to the meme out there regarding our content and our need to invest more. Definitely. We are at a point where we're investing more, and we'll continue to do that. When I look at Matt and his responsibility with his team, it's about charting our future in first-party content. I feel like with each one of the leaders we have, there's an existing plan. And I feel good about that plan. But we know that the plan all up for studios is expanding. Having Matt's leadership there is navigating the expansion. What bets we make, the teams we bet on, the teams we create is going to be critical. Some of it is with existing leaders we have there. And there are always opportunities to do more with the teams we have. But also, as we expand, having a leader in place so new investments can be driven and land in the strategy we have is going to be critical for me. That's really where I look at Matt's focus. Both the existing franchises and equally, if not a little more, thinking about our future content and how that growth happens in a thoughtful way, a way that delivers to our fans. Now, so it sounds like, with getting the hardware piece out of the way now, that perhaps Microsoft can now focus on the content piece. And I go back to that leak that we saw earlier this year with some of the potential games that we could see, and with the news of Fable. And look, I got to say now, I think Microsoft potentially is heading in the right direction now. Um, when I hear investment in first party, when I hear the focus on existing franchises and equally, if not a little more, thinking about future content, I think that that's certainly good to hear. I think that it's good to um, I think it's good to put that out there to the fans that, hey, you know what? I've seen the memes out there. I get it. I've heard you guys, and we're investing. And it kind of falls back to what Z Huge said in the reset era forums with regards to Microsoft's investments. And he's saying, you remember what Z Huge said? He's saying they're currently using their budget to invest in a number of key areas. And he said these areas are Microsoft Games publishing, digital ecosystem, Windows 10, Xbox. So um, I think that is something that I think many of us, if you own an Xbox, should kind of take a stride. And I think that also um, potentially, I think this is a step in the right direction. I'm not going to go out there and say that Microsoft's going to go out and build 5 new studios overnight. I think that obviously this is going to be a long-term investment. We may not see some of these things come to light till next console gen, which is fine for me. I mean, I just the biggest complaint that I've had is what I don't know the direction or the footprint that they're heading, and now I think we have potentially a better idea of the roadmap, if you will, of where Microsoft is heading, and I don't think we necessarily had that as much, and I think we have that a little bit now. And look, I think that's great. I think the focus should be, like you said, on existing franchises and thinking about future content. The other thing that Phil mentions, I'm sorry, and then there's a piece that I want to read that Matt Booty had mentioned, a quote from Matt Booty. Um, and Matt Booty actually made a comment about building bridges, the importance of building bridges between Microsoft's internal development studios. And he says, much more important though, I think there's a real opportunity well above the reality of running a large business, which is the opportunity for the studios to build some bridges between each other. As Phil pointed out, the studio heads really do get along with each other. Spend quite a bit of time meeting together and thinking about how we can support each other. But getting studios together for things like let's get all our art directors together. Let's have some opportunities for studios to visit each other and see what they're doing in terms of technology. Um, those things take time and coordination. They need a dedicated team to make that happen. I'm most excited to think about the opportunity of bringing the studio cultures together so they can learn from each other and really being of a service to the studio heads so they can go after some things around culture, around operations, around getting ourselves best positioned behind the overall strategy. It just takes time in the day. We all feel fortunate that the company has a commitment to first party content to the extent that we're willing to dedicate a leader focus on helping studios and moving our first party content forward. Um, this is this is big because I think this is something that Sony has done very well with their internal studios. If you look at Guerrilla Games more recently, I guess the best example is Guerrilla and Kojima sharing technical knowledge um, with regard to the Decim engine. And I think that um, that could potentially pay dividends for them in the future. And I think that's an area where Sony has really done well. Their studios getting together, sharing ideas, um, sharing, uh, in this case, the more recent case with Kojima and Guerrilla Games, with the Decima engine. I mean, and look, those things are going to take time. I don't think that's something that happens overnight. Um, but I definitely do think that this is a step in the right direction. Hey, what's up, Fuzzy Belvedere? Um, I really think that look there. Obviously, I'm not going to go out there on a limb and say Microsoft is back. We got all this first party content. It's just going to rain first part. We're going to get all these new IPs. What I am saying though is that for right now, they're saying the right things. They have the hardware out now. They got rid of the Connect. They've made some really key changes to the platform, and it's almost like full steam ahead now for them. It's like, hey, you know what? We got out of, we got out of the storm, and now it's full steam ahead. Now we can start implementing, some of the changes or investing in first party content. Now we can start doing that. And I think people are probably going to be a little surprised, pleasantly surprised, maybe this year, with Microsoft in 2018 and the Xbox. Now, I've been very critical of them, um, but I'll have to say that I'm reading this article and Phil saying, "Hey, you know what? This hasn't fallen on deaf ears. I know we need to do this." Leads me to believe that that there's serious conversations about this, and that they're serious about investing in first party content. And so, time will tell. I mean, ultimately, time will tell if they don't do that. Then we'll have a different conversation, down the road. But I think for right now, when I look at what they've done in terms of hardware, getting the Xbox One X out now, which is a very capable machine, it's a very good machine. And now with the appointment of Matt Booty, and with some of the rumors that we've seen with the recent leaks, with games like Mecha Sold, and having Rare going back to Perfect Dark, and Fable coming back, but being worked on by Playground. And look, Playground has recruited a lot of talent for this Fable game. They have people from The Witcher 3. They have some folks who worked on Horizon Zero Dawn. So there's a little bit of pedigree there. Um, I think that, and I think the impact, I think, of all this, and what we're really going to see is, you see all this common, and is going to be next console gen in 2020. Or I say 2020. That's my speculation of when the next console gen will kick off, 2020. But um, but I think that, I'm I think that this is going to be an exciting year. I think that I know, look, I know Phil's talked about content for years. And there's some people out there that are like, you know what, I'll see it when I believe it, or I believe it when I see it. And yeah, that's understandable too. I just think that I'm a little more optimistic this time because of some of the rumors that came out, what we know about Fable now, and Phil's recent, you know um, his recent quotes from the VentureBeat article, and him talking about the investment, and what Z Huge just mentioned on Reset Area, with regards to where Microsoft's kind of investing for 2017, 2018. So, but we'll see. We'll see if this doesn't pan out. If it's just more talk, then we're gonna have a different conversation later on in the year. But I do think right now, um, they're potentially heading in the right direction, and that's great. That's great for the industry. Competition is good. We want Microsoft and Sony to be competitive, because we want them to be successful, because we want them to push each other, and at the end of the day, we're going to benefit from that. So, um, GMG Jess 77 says Phil is making this sound like a new generation when they went out of their way to say it's not. Um, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Um, Enko says most of those rumors sound like pie in the sky. Enko, I got to be honest with you. I don't think those rumors are pie in the sky. The guy that dropped those rumors in Reset Area has pretty much has been spot on in the past. He actually pretty much leaked the whole Microsoft E3 2016 press conference, and it was like pretty much dead on. So he's got a good track record. And Fable was in there, and we know about Fable now. So, um, so Jez77 says the investment in games now, question mark. What was their plan for the Xbox One S? I think the Xbox One S for them was kind of a pivot in terms of moving away from the original Xbox, moving away from the Kinect, um, and it was a rebranding of sorts, I think, and that's and even the Xbox One X, I think, was kind of a rebranding for them. I think that um, that console, um, was them just saying, you know what, we lost the power narrative, but we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to change the narrative, and they did. I'm telling you guys. I mean, look, outside of the price point, outside of content, the machine itself is a very capable machine. I have one. I've been impressed by it. Some of the games on there look absolutely fantastic. And for a $500 machine to do some of the things I've seen it do, it's pretty damn impressive. And I got it. I give them credit where credit's due. They put out a great piece of hardware in the Xbox One X. There's no denying that. And with what, again, I'll go back to with what Z Huge is saying in terms of their current, in terms of what they're investing in, and what Phil has said. I think that they're heading in the right direction. Now, again, if they don't deliver, in the next, again, I don't think we can put a timeline and say, all these things are going to happen the next year, because, as projects, these types of projects could take years before we either hear about them or we see anything about them. And so I think that for them, this console gen is probably a wash, and they're looking to the future. Jess77 says yes on the hardware, but I don't understand their lack of investment in the software, and they are realizing that now their first party think is getting dried up once they did their Halo and Gears. Um, I think that they're. Here's what I think. I think that they've always recognized first party. Um, but I think Microsoft, from at least from a games perspective, I think that they are they kind of went through a stage where I think they were trying to find their identity again. I mean, we could all go back to 2013, and I felt like the 2013 Microsoft or Xbox that I saw was different from the 360 Microsoft Xbox era. And I think the shift has gone from, creating a device that is the center of all home entertainment, and they've refocused themselves on having a device that is a games first device, much like the PlayStation 4 is for Sony. And so I think that they needed to get hardware correct. They needed to get the services in place before they started investing in first party software. And I think that's kind of why we've seen that lack of investment. And I'm not saying that um that they get a pass for that. I mean, obviously that's been I think, in my opinion, been a weak point for them. It's been an area where I've been critical with them about, if I look at what Sony's done from a first party exclusive perspective, um, to their partnerships with some of their third party developers to bring exclusive content to their platform. Microsoft's kind of been behind the ball in that regard. What I'm saying is, I think that with what we've been hearing in terms of some of the leaks recently, what Z Huge just mentioned, what Phil Spencer and Matt Booty are talking about with getting the hardware right now, I think that they're heading in the right direction. I think we're past that point now of the 2013 Xbox era, with Kinect being dead, with the Xbox One X being out now, with them, actively trying to build partnerships with developers. I've there's stories out there that developers have been saying Microsoft is actively looking to either purchase studios or really really aggressively partner with some developers on exclusive content. So and actually, Daniel, you're right. I think Daniel brings up a great point. He thinks that Microsoft had a limited budget and couldn't focus on all the issues. I think that's part of it too. I think that has a big it's a big reason why they couldn't focus on all things. And you know and look, they don't have that kind of open checkbook that they used to have. So, but again, I think, look, guys, I think for them, this console gen's a wash, and they know it. And not that the Xbox One hasn't been successful. I mean, it just hasn't been as successful as the PlayStation 4, or which the PlayStation 4 is just one of those consoles that's just, it harkens back to the PlayStation 2. It's just selling at astronomical levels. Where you have the Xbox One that's selling good, you have the PlayStation 4 that's selling very well. And so I think that a lot of the investments they're making now are going to be investments for the next gen, to kind of put themselves in a position where they can be very, very competitive. So, but we'll see. Time will obviously tell how all this stuff manifests, how this manifests itself into new content and first party and what we see from them. And look, if this is more talk, and we don't see any results, then yeah, then we can absolutely hold them to the fire. But in my opinion, and from what I've read recently, I'm at a point now where I kind of feel like they're heading in the right direction, and this is good, because we want them to push Sony. We want these two companies, all these companies, to really push each other, because at the end of the day, we're going to benefit as gamers from this. So, um, so that's it, guys. I don't have anything else to rant about. I appreciate all the comments in the comment section. Make sure, everyone, if you haven't hit that like button, to hit the like button. We have 14 people watching and only 5 likes. Let's hit that like button. Subscribe as well. And if you have any thoughts on this rant, or on the topics, definitely feel free to comment in the comment section below. And I'll try to get back to respond to your comments. But everyone, have a great weekend. I appreciate your time. Great seeing everyone here in the live chat. I really, really appreciate your support. And I'll see you guys, unless some other news drops this weekend, or early next week. We'll see you guys again next Wednesday during our regular scheduled BRAP podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hey, if you haven't checked out this week's BRAP podcast, definitely check it out. Great topics. We had Zach from Bear Claw Gaming and SDGC on, and we had Bella Rise from Real Game Media on as guests as well. So definitely check that out. Everyone, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. Have a great weekend. Enjoy whatever video games you're playing. And remember, have fun playing video games, because that's what video games are all about. They're all about having fun, right? Well, at least I like to think they are. Anyhow, everyone, take care. Thank you again for watching. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.